Moody on the Move is presented by United Federal Credit Union. We get you.
Hi everybody, I'm Zack East, and for Pat Moody this month of Moody on the Move as we head on over to the United Way of Southwest Michigan offices to talk to a great impact partner in our community, CASA of Southwest Michigan. Moody on the Move is brought to you by United Federal Credit Union. We get you. Let's talk to our CASA friends in just a moment.
I keep coming back and I continue to be a CASA because I'm passionate about the work that we're doing for the children who need us most.
So we've started Moody on the Move this month here talking to our friends at CASA of Southwest Michigan, and they happen to be Jamie Brooks, who is the executive director, as well as Fran Chickering, who is the chair of the board, and we appreciate both of you being here at United Way of Southwest Michigan today to talk to us, and especially to tell people specifically, Jamie, about CASA. First of all, what does that acronym mean, and what does the organization do in the community?
Sure. CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates of Southwest Michigan, and we represent children in foster care who are in St. Joseph County and Berrien County. We exist because when a child comes into foster care, they encounter a great deal of change. They have a new home, they have new people taking care of them, they're away from their home of origin, they have new schools, they have new friends, and a whole slew of new people who come into their lives from the foster care system. And when that happens, the child gets lost. The Court Appointed Special Advocate Program recruits, trains, screens, mentors, community volunteers who inject themselves into that child's life to get to know that child as well as possible so that child has a voice in the system, so they have somebody who is a consistent adult presence in the system while they're in the system, somebody who follows them from beginning to end until they have a permanent loving home or they're reunified with their parents.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate it because not only are you doing great work in the community, but you always have a need for folks to join CASA and become great volunteers. So we'll talk about that in just a moment. But first, we need to find out a bit of the trajectory of where the organization is going. And Fran, that's where you can come in and tell us a little bit about what the board and what you're seeing for the rest of the organization's future, especially how to make sure that we can serve these vulnerable children in the community.
Well, thanks, Zach. CASA of Southwest Michigan started in 2016 with 8 trained volunteers serving 10 foster children in foster care. Since then, we have expanded in 2020 into St. Joseph County, Michigan, as part of our overall service area. Today, we have 65 trained volunteers serving over 144 foster care children in the system.
Wow.
It's an unmet need still. We don't have the capacity to serve all of the children who are being placed in foster care. In any given year, upwards of 400 or 500 kids enter the foster care system. So we need the resources to continually train new volunteers, qualify them to accept children as CASA advocates. And we also need to, as we increase the number of volunteers, we need to increase the staff who supervises the volunteers. We have volunteer coordinators. So that's where the generous community support that we've received over the years comes in.
And funding, as you've mentioned, is important. Volunteers are important, but those two things combined together are obviously going to make the trajectory of the organization flourish for the future. United Way helps with some funding, but that's just one source out of many different sources of fundraising that you need to do in order to keep, again, staff hires occurring and otherwise. How do you ask the community for some of those things? Is it through events? Is it through fun opportunities for people to be a part of things with CASA and learn about CASA? How is that happening, Jamie?
Well, we are funded largely by the community. People like you and me writing checks saying, we care about these kids and this is the way we can help. A lot of our funding, we're a generous funded partner of the United Way, and we are very grateful for that. We've received grants from some of our very generous community foundations that understand our work and appreciate the work that we're doing on behalf of these vulnerable kids.
So we talked about how fundraising is pretty important to continue the mission of the organization, but the volunteers are incredibly important. And you certainly need to add volunteers to the role pretty much at any time, but as you've said, you still got half of a year to finish, but also, of course, who knows what happens in 2024 and forward. And the process of becoming a volunteer is actually quite easy. You don't have to have all these backgrounds or qualifications. Just simply a love for making sure that children have what they need to be supported within the system, and you all will train them very effectively as volunteers, right?
Absolutely. We take people where they are. You don't have to have had children yourself. You don't have to work with children. You just have to have a passion and a love of children and some time to devote to them, especially our most vulnerable kids. We will train you, but training is only the beginning. Training is about a 30-hour experience, so you can see it's very in-depth, and we're teaching our community members about trauma and about what these kids are going through and about what the system looks like, so that they can essentially dip their toe in these waters. But once they're trained and once they're assigned to advocate for a child, we have an incredible staff that's right there with them every step of the way. You know, this is a complicated field. There's a lot to know, there's a lot to do, and that staff support is absolutely essential to this work.
So the volunteers collect a lot of information when they're working with the children that they're advocating for. What gets done with a lot of that information? Because I imagine there's a very specific path and a lot of it needs to be followed specifically, so an outcome can obviously occur that's positive.
Right. As I mentioned, there's so much change that happens for our children. So our volunteers are meeting with that child all the time. They are learning from every person who is involved in that child's life about what's going on, how are they doing in school, how are they doing therapeutically, medically, all of those great things. And we're sharing that information with the professionals in the foster care system who make decisions for children. They're workers and the court specifically. And so all of those folks have a much more well-rounded idea of who this child is, what this child is going through, and that with that information they can make better, more targeted decisions for that child.
I think that a lot of people find themselves asking, what can I do? I am just one person to make a difference. And as a CASA, you're able to be the difference for that child that you are advocating for. You are a constant for them. And in that time that they're in the system and their placements, that you get to go and you get to be that huge difference for them, that positive person that they get to see, that smiling face that gets to come and make that difference for them. I currently advocate for a child who is toddler aged. He is nonverbal. So when I go and gather information and visit him, I'm observing his behaviors, I'm talking with his placement, his foster care home, and because he doesn't have words, it's very vital that I'm paying attention to how he's acting, the skills that he has or is lacking, so that we can get him the correct resources that he needs at his age. There are so many children in the system that need a voice, and that's exactly what we're here to do. It's internally rewarding just knowing that there is a small difference, even if it's super small. We are making the biggest difference to that one child in the current situation. I'm making sure that he gets the resources he needs, or any child gets the resources they need for the best, safest life that they can live.
That's Moody on the Move for this month. I want to say a huge thank you to our friends at United Way of Southwest Michigan for letting us use their digs, and of course our friends at Little Red Fern, who are of course part of Moody on the Move every month, and especially our friends at CASA of Southwest Michigan for telling their story. I hope that you'll take it to heart and do something with this great information to become a volunteer and to help the organization. And speaking of helping the organization, we wouldn't be able to give you Moody on the Move each month without United Federal Credit Union. We get you.